You call it a sanctuary, Jason, but the legal filings describe it as a luxury displacement zone. How do you reconcile your image as a protector of the land with a project that evicted 400 families? Savannah Guthrie didn't wait for the applause to die down. She didn't wait for the warm-up banter to settle. The red tally light on camera one had been solid for exactly 12 seconds, and she had already thrown the first spear. Jason Momoa sat across from her, his massive frame dominating the beige armchair that was designed for smaller, less imposing guests. He was dressed in a way that suggested approachable rebellion. A distressed linen shirt unbuttoned halfway down his chest, heavy silver rings on his fingers, and a necklace of shark teeth resting against his skin. He had entered the Studio 1A set moments ago with a Shaka sign and a booming laugh that rattled the monitors, expecting the usual morning show reverence. He expected the softball questions about his workout routine, his motorcycles, and his latest blockbuster. He did not expect this. The smile on his face, a practiced expression of rugged charm, didn't vanish instantly. It froze. It was a micro-expression, visible only if you were watching in high definition. A slight twitch at the corner of his left eye. He shifted his weight, the leather of the chair creaking loudly in the sudden silence of the studio. "Whoa," Jason said, letting out a low, rumbling chuckle that didn't quite reach his eyes. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, invading the space between them with casual aggression. "Good morning to you too, Savannah. We skipping the coffee? We going straight to the drama?" "It's not drama, Jason," Savannah replied. Her voice was level, stripped of the chirpy morning inflection that usually greeted celebrity guests. She held a stack of blue index cards in her hands, but she wasn't looking at them. She was looking directly at him. "It's a lawsuit. A class-action lawsuit filed yesterday in Hawaii regarding the Makai Eco Resort. Your name is on the deed as the principal partner. You're the face of the development." Jason waved a large, dismissive hand, the rings clacking together. "Look, people get excited. People get misunderstood. That resort is about sustainability. It's about bringing resources back to the island. We're building something for the future." "The future of the island or the future of your portfolio?" Savannah asked. The air in the studio changed. It wasn't just a shift in temperature. It was a shift in density. The crew, usually busy with the low-hum logistics of a live broadcast, went still. The cameraman on the jib arm stopped his slow sweep. The floor director, a veteran who had seen everything from tearful reunions to cooking disasters, lowered his clipboard. This was off script. The teleprompter was scrolling with pre-written questions about his new action movie. But Savannah wasn't reading them. She was going rogue. But with the full authority of the news division behind her, Jason leaned back, crossing one massive leg over the other. His body language shifted from open to guarded. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that usually signaled relaxed confidence, but now looked like a delay tactic. "You're twisting it," Jason said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming gravelly. "You're reading headlines, Savannah. You're not on the ground. I'm there. I'm with the people. I know what the ANA needs. We're clearing out invasive species. We're replanting native flora. It's restoration." "The lawsuit alleges that the invasive species you cleared out were low-income housing units that had stood for 50 years, Savannah countered. She didn't blink. She didn't look down. She picked up a single sheet of paper from the table next to her water mug. "I have a sworn affidavit here from a community leader, Mrs. Kapoor. She says you personally promised the community that no homes would be touched. 6 weeks later, the bulldozers arrived with your security team. Did you lie to her, or did you just change your mind?" Jason's jaw tightened. The muscles in his neck flared. The charm was evaporating, replaced by a simmering irritation that felt dangerous in the confines of the brightly lit studio. He wasn't used to this. He was Jason Momoa. He was the guy everyone wanted to have a beer with. He was the hero. He wasn't the villain in a zoning dispute. "I didn't lie to anyone," Jason snapped. The volume of his voice spiked, causing the audio engineer in the control room to instinctively pull down the fader. "Projects evolve, engineering changes. We found structural issues in those buildings. We did them a favor. We offered relocation packages." "Packages that were 40% below market value," Savannah interjected, her voice cutting through his bluster like a scalpel, and required them to sign non-disclosure agreements. If it was a favor, Jason, why did you need their silence? Jason stared at her. For 3 long seconds, there was dead air on national television. It was the kind of silence that makes producers sweat, but Savannah sat comfortably in it. She knew the power of the pause. She knew that if she waited long enough, he would feel the need to fill it. You know, Jason said, a sneer curling his lip, I came here to talk about Aquaman. I came here to talk about the story we're bringing to millions of kids. And you want to ambush me with legal jargon? That's low, Savannah, even for the media. We can talk about the movie, Savannah said, her tone unyielding. But your brand, the brand that sells those tickets, is built on authenticity. You sell yourself as a guardian of the earth. If that image is a fabrication, isn't that relevant to the audience buying the tickets? It's not a fabrication. Jason slammed his hand down on the armrest. The sound echoed like a gunshot. I bleed for this stuff. I put my own money into this. I don't see you out there planting trees. I don't see you cleaning up the oceans. You sit in this air-conditioned studio with your makeup and your little cards, judging people who are actually doing the work. It was a pivot to a personal attack, a classic defensive maneuver. He was trying to make her the elite, the out-of-touch anchor, and himself the man of action. Savannah didn't take the bait. She didn't defend her resume. She didn't get angry. She simply tilted her head slightly to the right, a gesture of clinical curiosity. We aren't talking about me, Jason, she said softly. We're talking about the water rights to the Mackay Aquifer. The development diverted 80% of the local agricultural water supply to fill your 3 infinity pools. Is that restoring the land? Jason looked away. He looked at the cameras, then at the floor managers, looking for an ally, someone to signal that this segment was over, that they were cutting to a commercial. But the red lights stayed on. The producers in the booth were shouting into headsets, but the decision had been made. Keep rolling. This was gold. It was excruciating, uncomfortable, and terrifying. But it was gold. The water tables are complex, Jason mumbled, his voice losing its boom. He was deflecting, using vagueness as a shield. We have hydrologists. We have experts. I'm not a scientist. But you overruled the scientists, Savannah pressed. She glanced at her notes for a fraction of a second. July 14th, internal memo. Your lead environmental consultant advised against the pools. You replied, quote, the aesthetic is non-negotiable. Make it happen. Do you deny sending that email? Jason's eyes snapped back to her. The look in them was no longer irritation. It was genuine anger. He felt trapped. The walls of the narrative he had carefully constructed, the carefree warrior poet, were closing in. Where did you get that? He demanded, his voice low and threatening. It's part of the public discovery in the lawsuit, Savannah said. It's a public record, Jason. This is bullshit, Jason muttered. He shifted his body completely, turning his shoulder to her, addressing the camera directly. To all my fans out there, you know me. You know my heart. This is a hit job. This is what happens when you try to change the world. They try to tear you down. I'm not trying to tear you down, Savannah said, bringing him back. I'm giving you a chance to explain. If the memo is wrong, tell us. If the displacement didn't happen, tell us. But you can't just smile and say aloha and expect the facts to disappear. Jason turned back to her. His face was flushed beneath his tan. He leaned in again, closer this time. The personal space barrier was thinning. You think you're smart, don't you? Jason said, his voice dripping with condescension. You think you've got your gotcha moment. You have no idea what it takes to get a project like this off the ground. You have to break a few eggs, Savannah. And those eggs were people's homes? They were shacks, Jason exploded. They were rotting shacks. We're building paradise. And who gets to live in paradise, Jason? Only the people who can afford $3,000 a night. Jason laughed, a harsh, barking sound. That's capitalism, sweetheart. Maybe you've heard of it. The word hung in the air. Sweetheart. Savannah's expression didn't change, but her posture straightened imperceptibly. The steel in her spine stiffened. She had been called many things by powerful men, but the dismissal, the gendered diminutive used to minimize her authority, was a line. "My name is Savannah," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried a weight that silenced the room. "And I would ask you to maintain the same level of professional respect that I am showing you." Jason rolled his eyes. He was losing control of the optic. He knew it, and that made him reckless. He felt the humiliation of being cornered by someone he considered beneath his weight class. "Oh, don't get sensitive on me," Jason scoffed. "You want to play hardball, let's play. But don't cry foul when you get bruised." "I'm not the one who seems bruised, Jason," Savannah replied coolly. "You seem unable to answer a direct question about your own business dealings without resorting to insults. Let's try again. The security firm you hired, Vanguard Global, they have a record of excessive force. Last week, a protester was hospitalized with a broken jaw after trying to film the construction site. Your spokesperson called it an unfortunate stumble. The video shows a security guard punching him. Did you authorize that level of force?" Jason rubbed his face with both hands. He looked tired now, the adrenaline of the fight turning into a toxic sludge in his veins. He looked at his PR rep standing in the wings. The rep was making a cut-it motion across his throat, frantically signaling him to stop talking, to end the interview. But Jason Momoa didn't run away. His ego wouldn't allow it. "Security does what security does," Jason grunted. "I don't micromanage every guard. If someone trespasses, they get dealt with. The guy shouldn't have been there." "He was on a public sidewalk," Savannah corrected. "The police report confirms he was on public property." "According to who? The corrupt local cops?" Jason shot back. "So now the police are corrupt, the residents are lying, the scientists are wrong, and I'm a sensitive sweetheart for asking about it," Savannah summarized. She laid her hands flat on the table. "Is there anyone in this scenario who is telling the truth except for you?" Jason stared at her. His chest heaved slightly. The playfulness was dead. The charisma was dead. What remained was a man who was used to being the biggest thing in the room, realizing that size didn't matter here. "You know what?" Jason said, his voice dropping to a whisper that was louder than a shout. "I don't have to answer to you. I answer to the box office. I answer to the people who actually matter." "The people who matter are the ones watching right now," Savannah said, "and they are seeing a man who claims to be a hero acting like a bully." That was the trigger. The word bully hit Jason like a physical slap. He stood up. He didn't just rise, he unfolded, his 6'4" frame towering over the seated journalist. The camera operators jerked their lenses up to follow him, breaking the meticulously framed two-shot. "I'm done," Jason said. He adjusted his shirt, pulling the collar away from his neck. "This is a joke. You're a joke." "Please sit down, Jason," Savannah said. She didn't flinch. She didn't look up at him with fear. She looked up with expectation. "We have 2 minutes left. Walking away confirms everything the critics are saying." Jason looked down at her. He placed his hands on the table, leaning his weight onto it, looming over her in a way that was unmistakably physically intimidating. It was a violation of the unspoken contract of the news desk. You do not physically dominate the host. "I don't care what they say," Jason hissed, his face inches from the top of the desk, looking down at her. "And you need to learn your place. You're just a talking head reading words someone else wrote." He reached out. It happened in slow motion for the millions watching at home. Jason Momoa, the action star, the superhero, reached out his large hand and placed it directly on top of Savannah's script notes. He didn't just touch them. He grabbed them, crumping the paper in his fist. "You don't need these anymore," he said, a dark smirk playing on his lips. "Interview's over." He pulled the papers toward him. Savannah didn't play tug-of-war. She didn't gasp. She let go of the papers instantly. She looked at his hand, the heavy silver rings now crushing her research, and then she looked up into his eyes. Her expression shifted from interviewer to something far colder, far more authoritative. She was no longer the host. She was the owner of the house. She turned her head to camera one. "Cut his mic," Savannah commanded. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was absolute. Jason blinked. He looked confused. He hadn't expected that. He expected a struggle, a plea, a moment of chaos he could control. He didn't expect to be silenced. "Excuse me?" Jason said, but the audio was already gone. His lips moved, but the booming bass of his voice was replaced by the dead air of the studio feed. The viewers at home saw his mouth form the words, saw the confusion cloud his face, but heard nothing. Savannah kept her eyes on the camera. She didn't look at Jason again. She treated him as if he had already evaporated. "We are going to take a break," Savannah said to the audience, her voice steady, unwavering, possessing a terrifying calm. "When we return, we will discuss the legal recourses available to communities facing displacement, and we will hear from the lawyer representing the families in Hawaii. Security, please escort Mr. Momoa off the set." Jason stood there holding the crumpled blue cards. He looked at his lapel mic, tapping at it. Nothing. He looked at Savannah, who was busy adjusting her earpiece, already communicating with the control room about the next segment. She had erased him. He wasn't a guest anymore. He was a prop that had malfunctioned. Two large security officers, the studio's own, stepped out from the shadows of the wings. They weren't aggressive, but they were firm. They gestured toward the exit. Jason Momoa, the man who played Kings and Conquerors, looked around the studio one last time. He saw the crew staring at him, not with immersed awe, but with awkward embarrassment. He threw the crumpled papers back onto the desk. They bounced harmlessly off the polished surface. He mouthed something, an expletive, likely, and turned on his heel. He stormed off the set, his heavy boots thudding against the floor, a sound picked up only by the ambient room mics, a dull, rhythmic retreat. Savannah didn't watch him go. She picked up the one sheet of paper he hadn't grabbed, the affidavit from Mrs. Kapoor. She smoothed it out. "We'll be right back," she said. The screen went black. The commercial break started with a cheerful jingle for laundry detergent, a jarring juxtaposition to the psychological violence that had just occurred. But inside homes across America, nobody was looking at the laundry detergent. They were texting, they were rewinding, they were staring at their screens with mouths open. Did Jason Momoa just try to physically intimidate Savannah Guthrie? Did she just cut his mic like he was an unruly toddler? In the control room of Studio 1A, the chaos was absolute. The executive producer was screaming into a phone, legal counsel was already running down the hallway, and the social media team was watching the metrics go vertical. The clip of the mic cut was already on Twitter. It had 10,000 retweets in 40 seconds. But on the set, in the center of the storm, it was quiet. The red light was off. Savannah Guthrie let out a long, slow breath through her nose. Her hands, resting on the desk, were trembling slightly. Just a tremor, the adrenaline finally finding an outlet. She reached for her water mug and took a sip. Al Roker walked over from the weather station. He looked pale. "You okay, Sav?" he asked quietly. Savannah set the mug down. She looked at the empty chair where Jason Momoa had been sitting. She looked at the crumpled blue cards he had thrown. She reached out, picked them up, and dropped them into the waste bin beneath the desk. "I'm fine, Al," she said, her voice returning to its professional pitch, though her eyes remained hard. "He forgot where he was. I just reminded him." "We have to fill 6 minutes," a producer's voice crackled in her earpiece, sounding breathless. He walked. "We have a hole. Can you pivot to the legal analyst? We can get him on Zoom in 2 minutes." Savannah pressed her earpiece. "Get the lawyer and get the photos of the construction site. The ones with the bulldozers. If he wants to make this about the project, let's show the project." "Copy that. You're a killer, Savannah. 30 seconds to air." She straightened her blazer. She checked her reflection in the monitor. The hair was perfect. The makeup was flawless. The expression was serene. The red light on camera one blinked back to life. "Welcome back," Savannah said. "Moments ago, our interview with actor Jason Momoa ended abruptly. Mr. Momoa chose to leave rather than address the documentation regarding the Makai Eco Resort. While he is no longer with us, the questions remain, and the answers matter to the 400 families currently living in temporary shelters. Joining us now is David Kahala, the attorney representing those families. She didn't stumble. She didn't gloat. She simply did the job. The segment that followed was devastating. Without Jason there to deflect with charm or anger, the facts stood naked and ugly. The photos of the demolished homes, the charts showing the water diversion, the testimony of the grandmother who had lived there since 1960. It was a forensic dismantling of a celebrity brand conducted with surgical precision. By the time the show ended at 9:00 a.m., the narrative was set. Jason Momoa hadn't just lost an argument, he had lost the war. The internet wasn't talking about Aquaman. They were talking about the bully who tried to silence a journalist and got silenced instead. Savannah unclipped her mic and stood up. The studio crew broke into applause. Not the polite applause for a guest, but the raucous, respectful applause for a gladiator who had won. She offered a small, tired smile. She walked backstage past the green room where Jason had been holding court just an hour earlier. The door was open. It was empty, save for a half-eaten fruit platter and a crushed plastic water bottle on the floor. She went into her dressing room and closed the door. She sat down at her vanity and looked at herself in the mirror. She looked the same as she did every morning, but something had changed. The line had been moved. Her phone buzzed, and it was a text from her husband. Just saw it. "Holy hell, you okay?" she typed back. "He touched my notes." She stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it. She typed a new one. "Just another Tuesday." She put the phone down. The adrenaline was fading, leaving a cold exhaustion in its wake. She knew the next few days would be a circus. The PR statements, the non-apology apologies, the think pieces on toxic masculinity and media ethics. But that was for later. Right now, she just wanted the silence. She leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes, listening to the muffled sounds of the studio packing up. The show was over. The lights were dimming. But out there, in the digital ether, the fire was just starting to burn. And for once, the man holding the matches realized too late that he was standing in the gasoline. Savannah opened her eyes, took a makeup wipe, and slowly removed the television-ready face. Underneath, she looked tired. She looked human. But she looked unbowed. She threw the wipe in the trash, right on top of the day's script. "Next," she whispered to the empty room, and she walked out to face the day.